Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffy Kennedy, author of fantasy romance and romantic fantasy. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. I got a little foam on my nose. It's extra foamy this morning. Today is Monday, September 27th. Almost to the end of September. Can you guys believe it? September seemed to go really fast for me. I don't know about you guys. Uh, yeah, flew by. Flew by. It's a little cool this morning. I think I'm warm enough sitting out here. It's supposed to get stormy and autumnal later on this week. And let's see, what am I doing? Um, I did get work done on the secret project on Friday. Not tons, like 1,200 words, but that was better. I think I have to really, and I think I probably say this every time, but when I switch books, and especially like this, switching not just worlds but genres, that I really have to give myself some room to ramp up. I always think I can just dive into it, and no, actually not. Can't just get 3,000 words a day off the top of my head. And I'm thinking about this one a lot. And it's very interesting because I'm reading a book that is not in my genre. It's a departure for me, and I'm kind of started reading it on impulse. And I'll go ahead and tell you guys about this book. I already mentioned it to my mom. It's a mystery thriller by a Finnish author that was a bestseller in Finland. The author is Max Seek, Seeck. I will put a link to it in the show notes, but just in case you're not a go look at the show notes kind of person. And it's called The Witch Hunter. And they translated it into English, and I forget the translator's name. And I think they said it was an instant New York Times bestseller, which always smells a little bit to me. You know, an instant New York Times bestseller means that there was a lot of hype or that there was a little bit of thumb on the scale. It's only got 418 Amazon reviews, although this could be a reflection of the fact that a lot of people bought it on paper and they don't necessarily leave Amazon reviews. That's one of those things that, for people who really pay a lot of attention to how many Amazon reviews a book has, like a book that's in, I've got something in my eye, excuse me. A book that's like in Kindle Unlimited is much more likely, or that's available on Amazon exclusively. Well, which is also Kindle Unlimited, but I was thinking like Montlake books. What is in my eye? It's annoying. I'm gonna pause. All right, I think I got it mostly. So let's see, what was I saying? New York Times bestseller and buy on paper. Oh, that Kindle Unlimited books tend to have a whole lot of reviews, or a Montlake Books, which is one of Amazon's imprints. People who buy books on paper don't necessarily make the adventure to go to Amazon and leave reviews. So it's not always a straightforward measure of a book's popularity. Um, but anyway, it was suggested to me on BookBub, which is remarkable in several ways, in that I don't often read the BookBub emails. I almost never buy from the BookBub emails. But there was something about this particular book, and it was even on the more expensive side for me. It was $6.99 in ebook, which was on sale, down from like ridiculous $10.99 or something. But I was interested in. They said it was Nordic noir because it's of course Scandinavian, and I don't know. I just was interested, and I thought, well, and I could have done the sample, but I thought, well, I might as well grab the sale, and then if I really If it's really not for me, I'll just return it immediately, just like I would do with a sample. So I started reading it, and I found it just tremendously compelling. It's it's really interesting to read a book that's coming from a different cultural perspective. So I really enjoyed it for that reason. Enjoying it. I'm at like 85% now. It was fun to do a genre departure. I'll do another pause. There, had to adjust for the light. So, that's a prettier view anyway with the flowers. Yeah, so, and I'm learning a lot from this author, which is, I think, why I had that subconscious impulse to try this book, because the author is really, really good at suspense and building dread. And you guys know I teach classes sometimes on building suspense and keeping secrets. And yeah, he's good at it. It's funny though, because I also find some of, like I've talked before about how the author's voice is a huge part of why we read books, because we like being in that author's world, no matter what genre it is. And one of the best explanations I've ever heard for voice was from Susan Elizabeth Phillips and Jane Ann Krentz doing their Secrets of the Best-Selling Sisterhood talk at the RWA conference. And they said that voice is basically the distillation of you and what you believe. That all of your beliefs come out in your work, which is, I think, very interesting. And so this is an interesting book to read, in that some of these authors' beliefs I really don't like. I mean, he's a Finnish man, middle aged probably. So many people in this book smoke, and some are experiencing the ravages of smoking. But the smoking is a little bit off putting after a while. It's like, really, everybody on the police force smokes. Makes me cough in sympathy. Um, and there's also, even though the I want to say the protagonist is a female detective, but there's many points of view. There's lots of um, third person point of view, fairly omniscient at times, and and it's, I could tell that she's the protagonist. I probably would not be able to tell you in some ways. I'm not being very articulate. She's clearly the center of the story for particular things that have to do with this particular murder investigation, but it's not clear that this is her story. And the only reason I know that is because the series title is the Jessica Naimi Murder Mysteries, and this is the first book in it. And the second book is coming out in a few days, I guess. Um, so, so by this, and only by this, do I know that she is going to be um, the character that carries through, which is interesting, isn't it? So, there's a weird kind of misogyny in there. That's it's a real kind of internalized, very male gaze, and that's like, I don't know. I don't know Mexique. I don't think Mexique will care about my opinion, but nothing against you, Max. I don't think Max is probably aware of it, but it's like there's something about, and I don't think that not all men, not all male authors do this, but there's a certain kind of not understanding how women think, and it turns into a male gaze, that even when your protagonist is a woman, um, sometimes it reads weird, and there are certain opinions that leak through that I just I don't know. And I know that I'm hypersensitive to these things. And I think my mom's put the book on hold at the library because she loves mystery thrillers, and I think she'll really like this. the The supernatural elements are amazing, and I seriously have learned so much from this author on how he does stuff. um, but I can tell you like one thing. There's a moment um, where we're essentially at her point of view. It's still third person, and there's a slight, it's not deep third person, there's a slight amount of distance, which works because she's a somewhat reserved character. But there's a point at which she catches a glimpse of herself, and this is how the prose goes. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. um, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's it wasn't like she thought this or anything like that. It was she caught a glimpse of her reflection. She looked beautiful, even with her hair plastered back, even with no makeup on and her hair plastered back. And this was a little bit, and I'm explaining this for you guys who listen out there, because I know that it can be frustrating and confusing when we try to explain what male gaze is. Um, that's male gaze, because that is the male author picturing his very beautiful female character. And he's thinking, oh, look, she's not wearing makeup. She's on this boat. Her hair is slicked back from swimming. She's covered in suntan oil, and she still looks absolutely beautiful, which is perfectly legit, except that that's not how women think. That's how the man thinks looking at her. A woman catching a glimpse of herself when she has no makeup on and only suntan oil and her hair's all askew from swimming and so forth is going to think, oh, God, I should have brought a comb. You know? There may be women who are so confident that they don't think something critical about themselves. And it's hard to carry off, right? Because you don't want your character to be critical of herself. But at the same time, there's just like no woman ever catches a glimpse of her reflection and thinks that she looks beautiful. Um, Not unless maybe she's gone to an extensive amount of primping and then she's like, okay, all right, hair, makeup, outfit's cute, okay, beautiful, as good as it gets, right? You girls get me. Um, it's just a funny thing, and it's like I don't want this to be a thing of, because some people will take this to the extreme and be like, well, are you saying that men shouldn't write female characters then? And it's like, no, no, it's like, just do a good job. I don't find her a convincing female character, and that's probably me. I'll be very interested to get my mom's take on it, because I think she reads with a, well, obviously with not a writer's eye, she reads with the reader's eye, and she might be perfectly fine. But it's super fun. I mean, it takes place in Helsinki, and so it's cool for all of that landscape, and the police force is really different. In some ways, like not how they're portrayed in American novels. And the supernatural elements are spine chilling. I mean, the first 20% of this book freaked me the fuck out. Like, I woke up in the middle of the night thinking about it and feeling kind of scared, which is not something I do. But I also don't read a lot of scary stuff because I'm kind of a fragile flower. But yeah, really, really well done. And I do recommend it. Um, it's interesting, the varying experiences of reading a book like this. I also, over the weekend, um, I did a lot of financial stuff over the weekend, which is boring, but at least it's all done now. Had to compile my tax stuff for the October 15th filing. So done, yay. Well, I have to do a couple things today, but they'll have to scan in some stuff, but all of the nitpicky stuff is done. And I am resolved to try to keep up with it better. Every month I usually balance our accounts daily, um, check in on them, because it's easier for me just to keep up, do little bits at a time. It's like the argument, of like dishes. I think I put that on Facebook once, and it was interesting to hear all of the arguments on it. It's like, which is better, to do the dishes as they get dirty so that you're spending incremental time throughout every day on dishes, or to just let them stack up and do them all at once? Which thing takes more time? And I never measured the time, but it was interesting to hear all the opinions on which one takes up more time. Um, but I know for me that incremental, if I can get it to work, generally works best. I have to crunch royalties every month anyway, um, and I keep track of like credit cards and what we put on there and everything. So I'm just going to start, when I do that, try to get in the habit of putting that stuff into my tax spreadsheets too. So it'll be, I've tried this once before and I fell off of it, but this time I'm really resolved. And I could do like quarterly filing, which might be easier. I don't know. Since neither of us are on an annual salary, right? So what else? Oh, I also over the weekend read this essay by Cory Doctorow, which I lost track of, and I don't think I'm going to try to recover, because I thought it was okay. But it's like, you read stuff sometimes, and it's like, is it link worthy? I don't know if it's link worthy. He probably deserves the click because he did get me thinking about some things that I've talked about before. So maybe I'll look for it. You will find out if it's in the show notes or not. So, but it was an interesting thing because he was talking about how uh, more established authors don't have good advice to give to emerging authors. And I think it's really true. And it's mostly the thing of, he was talking about one of his own experiences of being at like a conference and having, it's busy out there this morning, Monday morning, um, asking an author questions, or people asking authors questions of like how they got established in the business. And the advice that the elder writer was giving was so outdated as to be worthless, because the publishing industry changes, and how those editors did things is not how it works anymore. And it's really an important point, and I've talked about this before on here, how my least favorite piece of advice that I'll hear, like some, you know successful author, successful big name author, somebody, when somebody says, well, how do I break into publishing, what do I do, the inevitable question that everybody wants a good answer to. And inevitably this person will say, well, first you have to write a really good book. And I have to say it in a voice like that because I think it's just abysmal advice for a lot of reasons I've talked about on here before. And if you guys want me to, I know the listeners shift over time, so I could talk about it some more. Maybe I'll try to talk about it tomorrow because I'm almost out of time. But the thing is that most people who are very successful at whatever it is that they have done are unable to tell anyone else how to do what they did. And this is because most people don't know. I swear, they think that what they did was they wrote a really good book. And we have news for them. There are thousands of people who write really good books. Um, there's this combination of persistence and serendipity, um, luck, timing, all of these things that go into whether or not a book is a success. But human beings think that, um, we always like to think that it's us, that it's because our shit is really just that sweet. And sometimes it is, but that doesn't mean that that's why it was successful. And so that's what Corey talked about that I thought was really interesting, was he says that more established writers can give good advice, so far as, like craft and persistence and networking with people and so forth. But No two authors have the same path to success, and trying to replicate that is just going to lead to sorrow. And I, and this kind of links into some of the things I was talking about last week with advertising, and like the author who was asking me about like her Facebook group and saying how she wanted to ditch it, but that's just not done. And it's like, no, just because someone else says that that was useful for them doesn't mean it's going to be useful for you. And that can be frustrating because we all want the step by step. If you follow this guide, then you will be successful. I mean, wouldn't that be great? I mean, I would do that. But it doesn't work that way. So you have to find what works for you. And, um, you know, getting the industry moves so fast that, you know, even if you could replicate someone else's path, um, even if that were like physically and metaphorically possible, it still wouldn't do you any good because the forest has changed. How's that for an extended analogy? So, some things to think about. I'm going to go in and get to work. I will remind you all that First Cup of Coffee is part of the Frolic Media Podcast Network, and you will find more podcasts that you love at frolic.media/podcasts. And I will talk to you all tomorrow morning. You all take care. Bye bye.